Hey guys, it's been a while since I've done a current events. Like many of you, I've been pretty busy lately, and to let you know right now is that this particular current events video will not have a quiz as a part of it. I just want to take a few moments and talk to uh, probably more just a few of you who are considering maybe going on to get your doctorate at some point down the line, who are looking for maybe a little bit of adventure, that kind of thing. But really what I'm going to talk about is higher ed, kind of what I do, and some of my latest research and some of the travels that I've been a part of, at least last week actually, so I'm not really going beyond that. And then talk about an opportunity that you may have if you wish to take it to join in on some of the stuff. First of all, when you talk about higher ed, it kind of falls into three areas they say are important when it comes to higher ed. So I know some of you may have at different points thought, you know what, I'd like to be a professor sometime in my life, I'd like to pursue my doctorate. And so I want to make it clear what it is that people in higher ed do. And of course, teaching is a main part of it, so you have to teach. If you're going to teach in something like where I am, which is in educational leadership, it will be very difficult for you to do it if you don't have some kind of a feeling, competence, understanding of the online environment. Almost any graduate program that involves certificates especially are often online, and so there's really no way around it. And although I prefer the face-to-face, I think there's a dynamic to being face-to-face. I very rarely get to do it. I volunteer to speak to a lot of groups, but I don't often or never get my own class face-to-face anymore. But teaching, nevertheless, is going to be a very important part of what you do. In higher ed, they also look at service, and service would be being on committees, helping out schools. There's all sorts of things. And even when you go into higher ed, if you decide to do some consulting, if you have some expertise that you want to bring out there, you can get paid for your service. Consulting, you can, I have a business that I have set up on the side that doesn't bring in tons of money, but what I do is that I always have something going on consulting wise, and just flow it through a business, and then the expenses and all that kind of stuff take care of itself. So anyway, service is going to be another part of what you do. And then the part that tends to get people in trouble in higher ed is scholarship. So you have to be able to write, and you can have long-term projects, that kind of thing. What I'm going to talk about is one project that I've had, and I was there last week, which is in Belize. I go to Punta Gorda, Belize several times a year, and the picture up on your screen kind of shows that in the area I go to, there's a lot of poverty. I was a little fascinated with this group. There are three little kids outside this little place where they lived. Mama lived, obviously was there as well. She was a very caring mother, doted on the kids quite a bit. I kind of found it interesting. I wish I had videotaped over here where these little boards are. You would see that stacked up at times, and they were, walking around doing different things. They were being kids. That's what they were. And so this is a little Mayan family that exists right there. But where they live is not something you would typically see in America, and you see a lot of that there. And so where I go is a very poor part of Belize. I believe I've looked at about 80% of the people there are at the poverty level. I think it's a little bit misleading because a lot of them are the indigenous culture, which is the Mayan culture, and they are subsistence farmers, so they live on the corn and various things you have right there. So they don't have money coming in, but they're fine. And you go into the villages where you see them, very clean. I do hear the principals talk about malnourishment on a regular basis, but for the most part, I think a lot of the statistics there on poverty are a little bit misleading, but it does exist out there in Belize. Well, I've been going there for, this was my 16th trip that I got back on last week, and I've got to give all the credit in the world to Peggy Gill. Many of you have in class at some point. And Dr. Peggy Gill, I'd won some money in a fellowship, received a fellowship a few years ago. Didn't know what to do with it, and she suggested that I start doing this, which she had done a couple of times too, which is go down and help out the schools and help out the Ministry of Education in principal workshops. And so I do this several times a year. And so this right here is, I think, in San Jose. You can see kind of the picture across there. The thatch huts, this is a typical Mayan village. It does have, you can kind of see through the middle of the picture, the road coming through, and the roads off of the main highway are not paved, and some of the villages still don't have roads that go to them, but it can be a pretty rough ride. It's kind of a tough deal. San Jose was probably a couple hours of dirt road off the beaten track, and so it could be a little bit difficult. But I saw actually a young girl leaving school, and she just disappeared over the hill right here, and I thought, and walked over there to see where she went, and it was a pretty steep hill, and it looked out over this little Mayan village. Have some of the same areas as before. This was a demonstration that took place outside the office. Matter of fact, the day before, I know a lot of these people. They talked to me ahead of time. This guy over here is the former mayor of Punta Gorda. His name is Carlos Galvez, and he let me know a demonstration would be occurring, but they were unhappy that one of the teachers in one of the secondary schools was released. And then this is off in Jalacte, which is on the Guatemalan border. Just had these little kids kind of gather around. They wanted a picture taken, so I got my picture taken with the kids, at one point last week. Jalacte is, again, pretty deep into the area. Sometimes if you ever see me in a presentation that I talk about the wells, the water wells that they use, and the levels of sickness from not drinking good water a lot of times out of there, I think some of that is beginning to change in that I've seen that Rotary clubs have brought in buckets that can filter the water, and you just pour it. It's real easy to do. You can filter the water out there, so I think that's helping some in towns like Jalacte. Other schools, and the kids are just like kids everywhere, work very hard. If there's any challenges that occur at different points, is that most of these kids, these are two little girls in the Mayan community of Aguacate, and if there's any kind of challenges there, is that English is the official language, but most of the kids come in with their primary language being something different. So it's in the Mayan communities, either Mopan or Quechua, and you have some Creole in there, you have some Spanish and that kind of thing, but English is what is taught in the schools. But just like in the States, when there is not the meaning that you would have where English goes on everywhere, because they may speak English in the classroom, but when they hit the playgrounds, it's going to be whatever their native language is. When they go home and talk to mom and dad, it's going to be whatever the native language is. And that lack of overall meaning for the language makes it that much more difficult to do. When it also comes into different areas, preschool is oftentimes a concern, and there's a big push for preschool in the area. Did an interview with the Ministry of Education in Toledo, and she mentioned preschool quite a bit. And then once again, this is and I'm going to talk about reading again, because one of the projects that I want to do right now is try to find a grant to help this is in San Pedro, Colombia. This is Daniel Palma. He's the assistant principal here in San Pedro, Colombia. They have 500 students in the school, and they have no books. There's not a library there, and I went to go look at what they had, and they have people have donated teacher edition math books and little workbooks, but you don't have any normal, regular chapter reading books in English in there. And I'm going to try to find some way and to get a grant that we can do that, and maybe even get some kind of a reading accountability program like an AR or something like that could be used there as well. And then can measure ultimately to see how well that helps in preparing these kids for whatever they need to do later on. They do take a couple of standardized tests. They call it PSE when they're in Standard 3, and in Standard 6, which would be like 5th grade and 8th grade for us. They take the PSE, the primary school examination, and the BJAT, the Belize Junior Achievement Test, and those are measures to see how well students are doing in their schools. But I am curious to see if I can work out something to be able to get some funding to take care of these areas. Is something that I want to try to do to help and assist these principals in San Pedro, Colombia. All right, and what I really wanted to bring this up for too is that I am planning a trip this June to Belize, and it is open to anybody, students. Even if you're graduating ahead of time, we can still work it out for you to go to Belize. This is a picture of the last group that went. Peggy Gill and I took a group of students in 2011, I believe. So by this spring, it'll be 3 years ago. And this is us out on a pier in the little town of Barranco. That is Guatemala. You see behind us in the area. but it was a great trip. We included both handling, going into some cultural areas such as into the villages and in Bronco. They got to eat, the Garifuna culture has a kind of a soup called, I'll mispronounce the name, but it's like hootut or something like that. And it's kind of a soup with fish and stuff. No one really, I like it. I've had it several times. The students were a little bit mixed on it, but it was a great experience to have some of that. And we went snorkeling. We did a cave swim. We just swim up into a cave and other different things. And so, what I'm saying is that I'm going to try to work this out to have another trip going up there. It'll probably run about $1,500. I'll get more information exactly what it is later. And that $1,500 will include the airfare, anything else, basically the meals, most of the meals, and that type of thing that you would want there. You'd be responsible for souvenirs or whatever else you felt like you wanted to get when you were there. All right, so that being said, I'll tell you again, there's no quiz to anything on this. I just kind of was thinking about, and I usually in classes when I talk to students, we take some time and try to answer questions, and I want them to consider where they want to go with their education, doing the same thing here. So there's no quiz involved with any of this. What I do want you to do is that if you have a knack for education or you like it, consider continuing your education. We don't offer a doctorate here. I'm not pushing you to do anything here at UT Tyler. We don't have one. If you ever want to talk to me about options that are out there, I have good friends in every university probably in the state, and I have probably collaborated with them in something. And so if that is something you're interested in, go do it. I think higher education provides a lot of interesting things, even if you want to go with your doctorate, because the doctorate opens up doors in other areas too. But if you want to go higher ed, then I think it's a great place to go. But I will tell you, if you want to do it, if you want to set yourself apart, what I would advise that you do is even now begin to think about writing for some state journals so that you can, on your resume, or what we would call your Vita in higher ed, we don't do anything easy, we call it something different. But on your Vita, that it would list, where you published, because that is one of the areas that universities value, and they look at that and they want to see that you are not opposed to publishing. And then the other part there is, if you're looking at this and you are, and I'll get some more information out before too long, but if you're interested in going to Belize in June, I don't know the exact dates, but it'll probably be 8 or 9 days toward the early to middle part of June, let me know. And you don't have to, there's no guarantee yet, but there's no commitment yet, but what's going to happen is that I've got to start setting up in the next couple of weeks the forms that I want to do, and start setting off the cutoff dates and start recruiting students. And so my students, obviously, you guys kind of get first shot at it, but then I'm going to go around to undergraduate classes and I'm going to give them an opportunity as well. That being said, continue on. I appreciate all your work, and as always, let me know if there's anything I can do for you.